Hi, welcome back to Gamers Web. Today we're going to take a quick painting guide to the Messerchmitt BF109E from the excellent Blood Red Skies by Warlord Games. This is part one of a two-part painting tutorial. I'm not the best painter in the world, but this is like a quick way of painting your planes up and getting them onto the tabletop as soon as possible. I've done part one of my Supermarine Spitfire Mark 2, sorry. The video link will be down here somewhere. So basically, just get started. So I've primed the planes in black. Right, so it's black on both sides. Here's the paints I'm going to be using. I'll make a list of them in the bottom the description. Okay, so I've got Earthforce Blue from Humbrol, which is matte 65. And I've also got, if I can find where I've put my paints, Abaddon Black from Games Workshop, Russ Grey from Games Workshop, and I'm going to use Mornfang Brown from Games Workshop, and also Null Nile from Games Workshop. So we've got to one side for the moment. And then I'm going to actually do something on the nose, which is not really in fitting with Battle of Britain, but I'm going to use this matte yellow from Humbrol, because I'm going to paint it in a colour scheme that I like, which is not early war, but it'll do. Okay, well, as far as I'm aware, it's not early war from all my research. Okay, and my tripod's just fallen. There we go. Right. Okay, just bear with me one moment. I need to readjust my tripod because it's not very good. Right. Okay. Right, so first things first, I'm going to actually use the Rust Grey, and I'm just going to liberally paint this all over, just one coat, that's all I need, all over the top. Okay, don't need to be careful, because I'm going to, like I did with the Spitfire, I'm going to actually wash the plane, which will hide a lot of mistakes that you make. And as I said, these are very, very quick. They're just going to be done to be used on the tabletop, and as you see them from 6 feet away, and they're 1/44 scale, 1/200 scale even, you really don't get to see very much detail. Okie dokie, so that's the top part done. Right, I'm just going to quickly wash my brush. And then I'm going to use, I'll do this with speed because I want to get the tutorial done as quickly as possible. I'm going to use this sky blue. Okay, so the sky blue is going to go on the underside. Exactly the same colour that I used for the Spitfire. And it doesn't matter how well it goes on, because you just put it on as a one single coat. It doesn't have to be very thick. And I'm taking this straight from the pot, after I've shaken the pots up, of course. Okay, and on the undercarriage. Okay, so what we're going to get now is a two-tone effect. So the bottom is light blue and the top is grey. Don't matter if there's a little bit bleeding over, because that's going to be covered over with the camouflage once the camouflage gets put on the plane. Okay, so that's the first part. And what I'm going to do now is pause and let that dry for a few minutes, and we'll come right back. Okay, and that's that done. Okay, so as you can see, the top part is painted and the bottom's painted. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the Null Nile, and I'm just going to apply the Null Nile all over the plane and let that dry. If I can find where I put my brush, which I can't. Oh well, there it is. Important safety tip, always keep your brushes close to hand. Okay, so just basically just going to paint the Null Nile all over. If it starts to pool, just spread it around. If you put too much Null Nile on, just damp your brush, and that will allow you to take most of the excess paint off. Now, you don't need, if you don't have access to nuln oil, you could use thin down black paint, but it'd have to be very thin. Okay, as you can see, the panelling's all starting to show on the top of the plane now. You could use thin down black paint, or you could actually use and all the bottom as well. I think I put a little bit too much on the bottom, so I'm going to go over that again in a moment. Right, so what you could use is thin down black paint, or you can use quick shade from Army Painter, which you just basically dip the model in and leave it to dry, and it dries quite quickly. Okay, so that's the top part done. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause again, let this dry, because it takes a few minutes to dry. This is what I mean by pooling. As you can see here, there's a lot of dark there. I'm just going to get rid of that by just wiping my brush along, and it all vanishes. Quite simple. Okay, so I'm just going to pause the video for a moment. Okay, that's dried more or less. So as you can see, it's grey on the top and the light blue on the bottom. I've just gone over it a little bit again. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to dry brush the grey on the top surface of the fuselage. Just get the brush. As you can see, this is my really old 16-year-old brush, and just wipe off some of the excess on a cloth. And then to dry brush, just basically take the brush, get most of the pigment off, and just run the brush back over the grey areas, and it'll start to lift out the detail. But because you've put the shade on, it should, in theory, leave some of the panels visible, the panelling. Right. Like that. Okay, that should be okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my brush. This is all being done very, very quickly. This is less than 8 minutes at the moment, and I'm almost finished. Get the light blue again, and then I'm going to do the same on the bottom. Just going to very lightly dry brush it. Make sure I put the lid back on my nuln oil, and then just lightly dry brush the bottom like that. And then I'm going to actually take the brush and I'm going to put a line here so it follows along the fuselage. And I'm actually going to use a smaller brush for that. So I'm just going to paint this on. So it gives the fuselage a bit of a definition. Yet still the bottom stays grey, sorry, the top stays grey and the bottom stays blue. So when it's done, it looks a little bit like that. Like that. Okay, as I say, you don't need to worry too much about it looking rough, because we're going to tidy it up in the next video, and we're going to put decals on, and we'll add a little bit of detail in it as well. Okay, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cheat. I'm going to add use this as my palette, and I'm going to add a little drop of white paint, and then I'm just going to lighten this up a little tiny bit by mixing a little bit of my blue with a little bit of this white that I've just put on this palette. This palette's just a piece of cardboard because it's cheap and disposable, and these are used for making roads and stuff and terrain. Okay, so basically just going to dry brush again, but using a lighter brush, and I'm just going to like that. I've actually put too much on, so I'm just going to wipe that off. Okay, so I've made a mess of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to re-ink it because it's too light. As you can see, it's actually a bit too bright, so I'm just going to re-ink that, so just burn one more. Okay, right, so I made a bit of a mess of that by actually, so I've got 5 planes on the go here at once, by actually putting too much white in. So I re-inked it, let it dry a bit, and I brushed it down a bit. And as you can see all the panelling quite well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a different plane, but I'm going to show the exact same technique because this one's actually dry. The top part of that hasn't dried properly. So I'm going to just dry brush using the grey, the light grey, with a little tiny bit of white in. Now normally I just use, if I was dry brushing, I'd just dry brush the base coat over the top. But because this is such a small vehicle, small aircraft I should say, I want it to stand out so I can actually see it from a distance. I'm making it slightly lighter than its base colour. And I'm just very, very lightly dry brushing this. Like that. And as you can see, those very lightly dry brushed. Still looking pretty rough around the edges at the moment, but I'll tidy all that up once I actually come to putting all the details in. Okay. So you should have a plane that looks like a light grey on the top and a very light blue, sky blue on the bottom, and the lines showing. Okay, so the next step is to use our brown paint. Now you can use brown or green for this, any colour you really want to, as long as it's a neutral colour. I'm using Monfang brown here, and what I'm going to do with the Monfang brown is I'm just going to put a little bit on my palette, and I'm going to dry brush this along the very top part of the plane itself, so on the top of the fuselage, right, just so it goes on the top. And I'm going to go down just to the cockpit, like that. I'm not even really dry brushing, I'm just dabbing the paint on, so like this. Now you could use black on this because some of the BF-109s have black black camo on the top of them. It's just basically so it can be broken up from the ground when it's up in the air. Okay, so like that. So it looks a little rough again, as I say. So the top part of it is brown. Okay. And just a little dab more there. Right, I'm happy with that. I don't want to do too much, because if I do too much I'll ruin it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the yellow, and I'm going to use the black first, and then I'll use the yellow. You work my way up, dark colours first. So shape the black up, and then using the smaller brush, which I neglected to wash, I'm just going to paint the cockpit in black. Also going to paint the aerial on the back of the cockpit. In black. Done. And then I'm going to shape my brush, because it's not very well shaped. don't like these. This is a Revell brush. They're not very good. But it'll do for the purposes that I need it. I'm just going to very quickly do the wheels underneath. So I've got the 2 wheels on either side, and then I'm just going to do the nose cone of where the propeller nose cone should be in black, because that's going to be painted white. And I'm going to do it in black, then I get a line of where it ends, and then I can just paint it in white on the top, which is a bit of a redundant way of doing things, but hey, I had black on my brush whilst I was doing it. Okay, so I'm going to use the yellow now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly, this is quite thin, but it doesn't really matter too much because all I need is just the colour. Okay, so the nose part, the nose cone is going to be yellow, and the back of the tail fin is going to be yellow. So back of the tail fin first. Now this is a very, very watered down yellow, so I'm going to have to do more than one coat on it. It might be advantageous to actually undercoat this in white first, but that's okay. I can always tidy this up later. And then with the nose cone, I'm going to go from roughly here on the nose, where the machine guns actually are, to the end there. So like that, and just, it doesn't have to be too neat again, because we're going to actually ink it, and then I'm going to redo it with another lighter colour of this yellow. I'm just going to basically put a base coat on, and then once it's dried, I'm going to ink it again. So what you should have is something that looks like a BF109 in silhouette. Very quickly, very easy to do, and only using a handful of paints, and that's how it should look. Okay, just going to pause a second. Okay, so what I've done is I've just repainted the yellow with a white base coat, so it will stand out a little bit more. Repainted the yellow on the back of the tail, the rudder on the tail, and I've also put 2 small white strips of paint on either wingtip. Right, now I've done them on the top, but I haven't done them on the bottom because they don't go onto the bottom, as far as I'm aware anyway. So the nose cone's still a little bit damp, but that'll be okay. I'm just going to give this yellow a good shake because it's not very thick, it's not very viscous at all. And then I'm just going to, actually it is viscous, it flows freely, what am I saying? Okay, so then over the white I'm just going to put a very, very thin coat of yellow, and as you can see that comes up a lot brighter quicker. Do the same on that one, and then I'll do the same on the rudder, on the tail. Now I'm going to use decals on these planes that are available from Warlord games. You can get a lot of 1/24th, or 1/200th, or 1/144th scale decals, but the ones that Warlord do are perfect for these planes. And then I'm going to put those in the next video, hopefully. And fingers crossed they'll turn out alright. Should be okay to actually look on the tail anyway. Now, I'm not very keen on the brown, so I may actually just go over that at some point with green, or I may do another one with green, but for this purposes I'm going to use the brown. Okay, so it's just on the top, I'm not going to put it anywhere else. You can actually put the stripes of camouflage lozenges or actual camouflage pattern on the wingtips of the plane, but I'm just going to keep this as simple as possible because I want it to be ready to paint and play as soon as possible. Okay, so that's part 1 with my BF109E. The next video we'll detail it, and we'll also put the decals on. So as you can see, he's ready to fly and go up on a sortie against some Spitfires. Okay, as always, these pairs are available from Warlord Games, along with the Bloodstred Skies game from Warlord Games, written by Andy Chambers. I always get like this when I try and end a video. So basically, join me in the next one, and I'll show you how to detail this, and I'll also be doing the detailing on the Supermarine Spitfire as well. As always, I've been Mark, Gamers Web, by gamers, for gamers.